Hi guys, today we're going to be doing a worksheet of sink or float. We have our objects here. Our prediction goes here to see what we think happens. Observation is what actually does happen. What we see happens. Alright, so let's start with ornament. Ornament, I think, is gonna float. Rock, I think it would sink. Fork, I think is gonna sink. Candle, I think it's gonna float. Glove, I think that would float. Empty can, I think it's gonna float. And a paper clip, I think it would sink. Alright, so I have my water here. We're gonna test it out and see what happens. I have an ornament. Let's drop it and see what happens. Either it sinks or it floats. It floats. So we can circle float for the first one. Float. Our next one is going to be rock. I think it's going to sink. Let's see what actually happens with it. Yep, it went all the way to the bottom. So we're going to circle sink. Sink. Our next one is a fork. I think the fork is going to sink. Let's see what actually happens. Yep, it went all the way to the bottom. So we're going to circle sink. Sink. Our next one is a candle. A candle. My prediction was that the candle is going to float. Float. Let's see what happens. Yep, it's floating. So let's circle float. Float. Right over here. Okay, and our next one is one glove. My prediction was it would float. Now let's see what happens. Yep, it's floating. So we would circle float. Float. Our next object is a can. My prediction is it would float. So now let's see what happens. Yep, it's floating. Let's circle float. Float. Right here. And our last object is a paper clip. My prediction is that it's gonna sink. That it would sink. Let's see what happens. Yep, it went all the way to the bottom. So it is sink. Sink. So that's what happens to all the objects.